Welcome, fellow travelers of the human condition, to a journey through the depths of Stoic wisdom. Today, we confront a paradox, a notion that seems counterintuitive to the common understanding: kindness, the very essence of humanity, can lead to ruin. But fear not, for in the shadows of this darkness lies the radiant light of Stoicism, offering guidance and fortitude to those who seek it. 1. The illusion of control. Kindness often stems from a desire to control outcomes, to shape the world according to our wishes. However, the Stoics teach us that the only thing we truly control is our own actions and attitudes. As the great Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, some things are within our power, while others are not. By relinquishing the illusion of control over external events, we free ourselves from the shackles of disappointment and resentment. 2. The tyranny of expectations. Kindness can become a burden when we expect gratitude or reciprocation in return. Stoicism invites us to release these expectations, to perform acts of kindness for their own sake rather than for the validation of others. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. B1. 3. The trap of emotional dependency. Kindness, when driven by a need for approval or validation, can enslave us to the emotions of others. Stoicism teaches us the importance of cultivating inner strength and self-reliance, of finding contentment within ourselves rather than seeking it from external sources. Seneca reminds us, true happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future. 4. The perils of attachment. Kindness, when rooted in attachment to specific outcomes or individuals, can lead to suffering when those attachments are inevitably severed. The Stoic sage embraces the transient nature of life, recognizing that all things are impermanent. As Epictetus observed, he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. 5. The deception of false virtue. Kindness, when performed for the sake of appearances or self-interest, becomes hollow and insincere. Stoicism challenges us to cultivate genuine virtue, to embody kindness not as a means to an end, but as an expression of our true nature. As the Stoic philosopher Cleanthes wrote, "Lead me, O Zeus, and thou, O Destiny. Wherever your decree has assigned me, I will go." 6. The erosion of boundaries. Kindness, when indiscriminate and unchecked, can lead to the neglect of our own well-being and boundaries. Stoicism teaches us the importance of self-care and self-respect, of honoring our own needs and limitations. Seneca admonishes us, we are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality. 7. The dangers of resentment. Kindness, when met with ingratitude or betrayal, can fuel resentment and bitterness. Stoicism offers us a path to transcend these negative emotions, to cultivate forgiveness and compassion even in the face of adversity. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. 8. The temptation of complacency. Kindness, when mistaken for passivity or acquiescence, can lead to complacency in the face of injustice. Stoicism calls us to action, to stand firm in our principles and to speak out against injustice with courage and conviction. Epictetus challenges us, if you wish to be a writer, write. 9. The mirage of external validation. Kindness, when pursued for the approval of others, becomes a fleeting and elusive pursuit. Stoicism directs our focus inward, reminding us that true fulfillment comes from living in accordance with our own values and principles. Seneca advises us, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. The liberation of detachment. Kindness, when practiced with detachment and equanimity, becomes a source of inner peace and freedom. Stoicism teaches us to embrace the impermanence of life, to let go of attachments and expectations, and to find serenity in the present moment. Marcus Aurelius implores us, dwell on the beauty of life. Watch the stars, and see yourself running with them. In the crucible of kindness lies the potential for both ruin and redemption. It is not the act itself, but the manner in which it is performed, that determines its impact on our lives. Stoicism offers us a guiding light in the darkness, a philosophy of resilience and fortitude that empowers us to navigate the complexities of human experience with wisdom and grace. As we journey forth, may we heed the words of the Stoic sages, finding solace in the knowledge that true happiness lies not in the pursuit of external validation, but in the cultivation of inner virtue. Let us embrace kindness not as a burden to be borne, but as a gift to be shared freely and without expectation. In the words of Epictetus, he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. May we find joy in the practice of kindness, and may it illuminate our path toward a life of meaning and fulfillment. Remember, fellow travelers, in the face of adversity and uncertainty, we are not alone. For we carry within us the indomitable spirit of the Stoics, guiding us ever onward toward the heights of human excellence. Thank you for embarking on this journey through Stoic wisdom with us. If you found this exploration of kindness and Stoicism enlightening, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content on personal development and philosophy. Your support helps us continue spreading the timeless teachings of Stoicism to seekers of truth like yourself. Until next time, may you find strength and serenity on your path of self-discovery. Farewell, fellow travelers.